Hey class, Professor Ramey here. I'm just making a real quick video to try to explain, give a little more clarification, and maybe show you how to write the argumentative essay that's coming up. I have instructions posted on D2L. They're fairly thorough, but I can understand how a student reading through them might be, okay, great, now what do I do? And as I say, the hardest thing to do when doing an assignment like this is just to get started and actually put something down on paper, that first sentence, that first paragraph. So I'm going to try to show you a way that I might suggest on writing this essay, the way to at least get started, at least have a good frame of thought when you're going in to do it. So just a quick summary of what the assignment is, right? And I'm got on the screen over here, I have the instructions up. The goal of the argumentative essay is to examine a number of primary sources and make a well-reasoned argument based on those sources. And that's exactly what you're doing, right? You are going to argue a point of view, a perspective, based on what you've learned from the textbook, my video that I put on Americanization, and most importantly, and mainly on the 16, I believe, sources I listed in the submodule, right? The essay this semester is covering immigration, Americanization, and nativism, right? So in the early 20th century, in the years 1900 to 1930, especially during the first 20 years of that time, there was a huge influx. Millions of immigrants came over to the United States, right? At this time, this is mostly European immigration. The German, the Irish early on, followed by Italians, Polish, Eastern Europeans, Russians, etc. On the West Coast, there was a substantial amount of Asian immigration, particularly Chinese immigration. This is a little bit before there's a lot of Latin American immigration into the United States, but there is still some, right? And the United States as a whole was a nation of immigrants. We are a nation of immigrants still. Unless you're a full-blooded Native American, I didn't see anybody list that in the discussion board, in the introductions. At some point in time, whether you yourself, your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, or somewhere back in the day, your ancestors moved to this nation, right? And we populated this nation. I go into much more detail when we get to the Americanization video of the problems the United States has, therefore, in understanding this concept of what is American. And that's really what the goal of this essay is, believe it or not, is to look at the challenges the United States faces with immigration, what U.S. policy may have been, how what citizens thought, what the people thought about immigration, what immigrants thought about immigration, right? And to ask yourself this big question, and it's question number 6. In your opinion, what does it mean to be American? What does that word mean? What values attached to it? Are we talking about people? Are we talking about ideas? Are we talking about a frame of mind, a perspective? Or are we just talking about the borders of 50 states and some territories? Right? But the word American has some value to it. It has some meaning attached to it, perhaps. And I want you to ask yourself that, right? What does it mean to be American, and do these ideas change over time? Is it a different idea today in 2017 to what it was, say, in the early 20th century, during the time of this essay? And I had these 6 questions, right? And these 6 questions are basically just general lead questions that you need to answer to write out this essay. And they're really building up to question 5 and 6. 5 and 6 are really the argument part of it. And questions 1 through 4 are to kind of get the flowing to prove your point that you're trying to make in 5 and 6, right? So here's how I would go about writing the essay. First, read the instructions clearly and make sure you know what the 6 questions are. Question 1, what were some of the major issues regarding immigration from both sides? Who supported immigration, who did not, and why? In other words, during this early 20th century, there were Americans who said, let's close the door, no more immigration. We have too many immigrants coming into the United States. Why did they feel that way, right? And on the other side, there were people that said, no, we're a nation of immigrants, we should have more immigrants. What issues and why did they feel that way? Question 2, what were some of the arguments for promoting or at least lessening restrictions on immigration and wanting to restrict immigration to the United States, right? It's similar enough to question 1, but now you want to get into the arguments. What were they saying? Why did they feel that this was problematic, or why they feel that this was creating a greater nation, right? Looking through the sources. And then you can use the textbook on this as well. You can use my Americanization video. But I really want most of the evidence to come from the sources that I provided, right? Question 3, what were the issues affecting the U.S. during the post-World War I, What were the issues affecting the United States during the post-World War I years that led to immigration policies? And this one is, you're not going to be able to figure out too much from the sources, although you can a little bit. I would maybe take a look at the European anarchist picture, right, and a few others. But, get some background there. So understand that there is a national response to immigration, and there were, it wasn't just in a vacuum, right? And then question 4, which I think is the most interesting of the 4 leading questions: how are immigrants portrayed by the different sides on the issue? And this is where I want you to go and look and read through the documents, look at the pictures, look at the drawings, and try to come to a conclusion. People that were against immigration and against large-scale masses of people coming to the United States, how do they draw immigrants, right? And those that champion the idea that America is a nation of immigrants and we're one people together, what is their idea on immigrants and immigration, right? How do they see each other? And then you have your basis of at least a formulation of American immigration policy in the 2 sides, which leads to questions 5 and 6. What similarities and differences do you see with modern U.S. immigration policy? All right? We have a president that says, build a wall. Some people support that, some people do not, right? It doesn't matter which side you take in the issue. It doesn't matter if you support it or don't, right? It is U.S. immigration policy, right, on that. There's still a debate in U.S. immigration policy. Are there similarities today or are there differences today, right? And give me examples. Argue your point, saying U.S. immigration policy today is actually very similar, or no, it's very different, and here's why, right? And once again, you consult the documents in this, right, to kind of make your point. If you're saying it's very similar, maybe you look at that one, the Americanese wall, right? You say it's very different, maybe you look at like the Americanization poster or something like that. And finally, question 6, in your opinion, what does it mean to be American, right? Do the ideas of who's American, the values attached to that change over time? And this is where you kind of, this is where I want your thoughts. And at the end of the day, that's actually what this essay is about, guys. Students sometimes fear this assignment, and I can understand. Sometimes students just tell me what to write, give me a structure, tell me to write 3 to 5 pages on this, and I'll write it. So look, I've got a little bit different idea sometimes about college coursework, and it's difficult in an online class when there's not as much interactivity, there's not as much, we don't see each other all the time or ever, and so I can't be there and helping with ideas. But that doesn't mean that I don't believe the core curriculum of a college history class should be thought in ideas. And that's what this assignment is about. I want your thoughts, your ideas, to you to actually think about a topic. And I don't care what the answer you come to. I just want you to think and come to an answer, right? An idea for the sake of having an idea. And you might say, well, maybe it's a stupid idea. It's probably not. It's probably not once you flesh it out. Or, who knows, maybe it's fucking stupid. I don't know. It doesn't matter as long as you have thought about the idea. And you put it down on paper right there. And that's what I'm looking for here. So don't be nervous or apprehensive about getting in there. Like, actually get in there and just answer those questions and think about those questions. Look through the sources to find some proof to back up what you're saying, and you're going to do just fine, right? And that's where it gets into this. There's no wrong answers in this essay. They are not, right? You have a perspective. You argue it as you see fit. All I'm going to look for is, did you argue it well? Did you back it up? Did you back it up with proof? And did you think about the topic? And if you did that, you're probably going to do very well, right? But I am a stickler on this, guys. The only evidence you can use is the evidence that is provided in the class. In other words, you can use the textbook. I think what I'm going to do is open it up on the discussion board, and open it up to you, the class, to, if you find pages in the textbook that can help, right? You say, oh, look, this right here on page, whatever, in chapter 20, it talks about, nativism or whatever. Post it on there. Get some discussion going, right? But that's all you can use is the textbook, and use it sparingly. Use it just for background information. I posted an Americanization video. You can use that. It might help a little bit. Use it sparingly, but really what you want to use is the sources. Just go through those sources. Use as many or all of them as you can to provide evidence in your paper, and you'll be doing very well, right? I looked through the images on D2L. They all seem very clear. If you want to download them, you can zoom in a little bit more. That might be advisable right there. But let me know if you're having any problems with that. And yes, you do need to cite this essay, but since you can really only cite 3 things, I guess. You can cite the textbook. You need to just say textbook and give the page number. You need to cite, if you use my Americanization video, just write Americanization video, but use those sparingly, right? I don't really want a lot of essay. I don't want your essay being other people's ideas. I want the essay being your ideas. So what most of the citations should be the actual sources, the 16 primary sources I provided. By the way, I keep saying 16. I think there's 16. If there's a different number, okay. Use those, and then all you do is when you have a thought, say, I don't know, just that quotas are un-American, right? As you see the first one up there, right? You say that restricting immigration and putting a quote on that is un-American and goes against the values of America, right? Let's say that's one of your argument or point you want to make, right? And you use the against quotas un-American bill document in there. Just at the end of that statement or your thought on that issue, just put parentheses and write against quotas un-American bill, close it, boom. And I know what to say. Okay, you've got that information from there, right, to prove your argument. Okay. Hopefully that goes a little ways into helping you write this essay. Just focus on the main things. Focus on less on how do I write the essay, and more on what are the answers to these questions in my opinion. And maybe the best way to start after reading through the instructions and going and make sure you understand the questions is just looking at each and every source. Just open each and every one of them, look through them, get some general ideas. Set some of the main ones aside that are really going to help you, right? And then go from there. And then start building your paper and your argument on that. Okay. Another suggestion, just throwing it out there. This in the classes so far, discussion hasn't been a great thing in the discussion board. That's okay. I don't like to force discussion or anything like that. But if you feel that you're getting stuck, or you want to throw around ideas, or you find something you think is interesting, or you want to discuss a cartoon, right? Or you want to discuss how this affects modern policy, or what is modern policy, anything, throw it out there in the discussion board, right? There's enough people around. I try to stay out of the discussion board too much unless it's an issue, other than to welcome you to the class. But I might get involved in that, right? But I might get involved. I might play devil's advocate. I might not try to answer your question, but at least prod you on a certain line of thinking or something like that. But I can't do that by myself. I'm not going to sit there and just say, you need to discuss this or that. I feel I hate online classes that do that, and I never want my class to be there. Okay. If you have any questions, though, send me an email, or, as you know about the email problem, send me a text, and I'll get back to you with answers. I'm posting this right before Thanksgiving week, and I'm not going to make another video just to wish you a happy Thanksgiving, but listen, you got a little bit of work to do during the week, I'm sure, for other classes and maybe this class to write this essay whenever you get started on it. But I wish each and every one of you a happy, safe Thanksgiving. If you're with friends and family, go have a great time. If it's just Thanksgiving alone, fuck it, have a good time, right? Do what you will. Watch some football, don't watch football, whatever you got to do, but just have a good time, guys. The semester's wrapping up. Y'all are doing a great job, and I don't know what else to say. Just keep up the good work, guys.